The Magna Carta was the dawn of Britain's new era of freedom and the beginning of its long journey to constitutional monarchy, Britain's current form of government. Constitutional monarchy is where there are still royals present, but they don't do much regarding the government. Instead, the government in Britain is run by Parliament. The Magna Carta signing marked the beginning of Parliament's foundation. The British Parliament structure is made up of two houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The two houses are focused on the people, with the addition of the Crown, which is made up of the monarchy. The House of Lords and the House of Commons are put in place to ensure rightful laws that support the people. One of the people's positions, the House of Lords, is elected through a non-conventional means. Instead of being through normal election, the House of Lords is worked through a system of recommendations from an independent organization as of 2000. To avoid political influence, choosing to focus on the skill of the potential chairman instead of their political affiliation. The selected members are then approved by the Prime Minister before going to the Queen to be approved officially for office. They then attend a ceremony where they are officially appointed members of the House.
Inversely, the House of Commons is elected by the people to ensure that no matter what happens to the House of Lords, the people will always be the deciding factor in lawmaking. The House of Commons does roughly the same job as the House of Lords. Both houses work together to pass laws and approve taxes that remain fair to the people. The Crown is how the monarchy fits into the new system of government. Although this section's power dwindles as the years go on, it still has an important part in the British Parliament. The Crown is responsible for making a speech to the House of Lords, dictating what type of laws should be made. The speech is done at the state opening of Parliament to start off the year. The Crown has no power over what the law's subject matter is and has no part in the actual making of approval of laws. However, they play the final role in ratifying laws. The part is strictly for formality's sake. They are also in charge of appointing the Prime Minister, inviting the current party leaders to take the position.
June 15th, 1215. The Magna Carta attempts to limit the abuse of power by the king by implementing a feudal system. The king at the time, King John, surrendered significant power when he agreed to the Magna Carta. It wasn't meant to be a list of rights for Englishmen or barons. It was meant to bind the king under rules and provisions. October 1st, 1532. Reformation occurred, the Church of England was established, further uniting the people of England under one ideology. Henry VIII broke ties with the Pope in the 1530s when he wasn't allowed to divorce his wife. Later on, Henry passed the Act of Succession, basically declaring himself the supreme head of the Church of England. January 1st, 1642. The English Civil War was a series of civil wars between parliamentarians and royalists. It mainly focused around the English government and religious freedom. The Commonwealth was established during this time. This war was considered a major step in the right direction for English constitutional monarchy.
November 1st, 1649. King Charles I was beheaded 7 years after the Civil War began. Charles's lack of empathy and refusal to consider views of those that opposed him led to his growing unpopularity. Charles was put under house arrest before he was executed, only given 3 days to say his final farewells to his family. This shortly ended the monarchy before the head parliament, Oliver Cromwell, died before achieving a working parliament. The late king's son was invited out of exile to rule rather than England enduring another civil war. April 16, 1688, the overthrow of King James II. Known as the Revolution of 1688, when King James came to power in 1685, relations with Catholics and Protestants were tense. He was a Catholic. Later on, in 1687, he formally dissolved his parliament and attempted to create a new one that would support him unconditionally. In 1788, an armed invasion was put together by William of Orange to invade England. King James tried to fight back, but many people were against him. He escaped to France and later died in exile. September 26, 1701. The Act of Settlement. This act was meant to secure the Protestant succession to the throne. It also strengthened the Bill of Rights, which proved to be of fundamental importance for the evolution of constitutional monarchy.
January 1st, 1832. Male property owners were allowed to vote, known as the Great Reform Act. After the French Revolution, a growing acceptance that parliamentary reform was needed emerged. Limited change had been achieved, but it was still not enough. This led to the Second Reform Act. September 1st, 1867. The Second Reform Act was passed and proved change was possible. Male household heads were allowed to vote. This act roughly doubled the electorate in England and Wales from 1 million to 2 million. September 26, 1911, the National Insurance Act. This act protected working people against loss of income related to sickness or unemployment.
March 28, 1979. The election of 1979 was the most famous election in Britain because they elected their first female prime minister, Margaret Thatcher. She was a part of the Conservative Party. Margaret clashed with the Queen of England, both being women of similar age and power, neither liking the other's ideals. Many disliked her. October 3, 2010. The Conservative Party won the election that stopped the Labour Party's 13-year hold in office. The monarch was obsolete at this point, and all political affairs were handled by the Prime Minister. All in all, because of the Magna Carta, people in Great Britain have the right to choose who they want to govern them while still having the royal family in place.